Hello, I'm Nikki.
And I'm Jess.
She's the basic witch.
And she's the Black Widow. And
welcome
welcome to our
spooky
podcast
episode.
That thing. For anybody who might be slightly confused who's listening, go check out our YouTube video. Because we're dressed up.
We're dressed up.
Because it's our spooky episode. So go check it out. Or just be confused. How did you come up with your idea?
I was kind of in a panic when you said you got some stuff, so I'm like, crap. What do I have around the house that I could kind of do something with? And then, I don't know, I was like looking up DIY or like at home, like costumes and stuff. And I had found like this one box that was like a circle, but it like, I was like, maybe if I can get somehow the top of the box to stick to my hair like a hat, I could be like a Black Widow that's at her husband's funeral or something like that. And I went downstairs and I was like digging through the garage, and my husband's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have this idea and I'm trying to figure out if I can do it. And he's like, just go to Walmart. I was like, okay, say less.
Yeah, right? Like, you gave me the okay. I'm good. Like, because we were going to do like a hockey player, a football player. So I wasn't planning on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing laundry and went to Starbucks, and right beside Starbucks is Spirit Halloween. And Tim was like, well, we have like 30 minutes to kill. Do you just go in there? And I was like, we could get decorations because we have like a little patio.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, yeah, let's just go look in there. And so we were just exploring, and it's a fun store. And I saw hats, and it was like a witch hat. It was a big witch hat. It was a really big one. And Tim was like, because I was literally drinking my Starbucks like matcha green tea with vanilla cold cream foam, 2 pumps brown sugar, 2 pumps vanilla syrup. Like, and he was like, oh, you could be a basic witch. And I was like, I have to do this. This is my life now. And then I opted for the smaller hat.
Yeah, I love it. It's so cute.
It's purple too, and it's velvet.
I mean, that's my favorite color, so I'm sold.
Yerp. I got the long nails, which I've lost like 4 already. They're literally just gonna start slowly coming off as we do the episode, so enjoy them now. Look how pretty. We dressed up. We did it. Look at us.
Now time to take it off so we can actually record.
Yeah, right.
My mug today is focus.
I'm so fucking glad you showed me that mug. I'm pretty sure I have that in a cart to get you for Christmas. I'm not shitting you. I literally, I think it's an exact same mug. So I'm really glad you showed
Look,
it.
another glorious morning.
Mine is a Starbies. Cause
up front right now, I went with kids, scary,
yeah,
campfire stories. I guess that's not what we were doing.
I'm really glad we're disclosing this. So, like, if you want like a cutesy kids campfire, like, just listen to Nikki stories. Mine are really fucking dark. The complete opposite way. Like, literally, my stories, some eyeballs get removed. My stories are really not great. I mean, they're great, but they're not kid-friendly, so buckle up. This is gonna be a roller coaster.
Do you have a fun fact of the?
I do have a fun fact today. And Beanie's birthday was recently, and so it's actually kind of Beanie related. Did you know Play-Doh actually started out as a wallpaper cleaner before the head of the struggling company realized that the non-toxic material made really good modeling clay for children and rebranded it?
Are you kidding me?
No, yeah, it actually started out as a wallpaper cleaner.
Wow.
And then
like what, you would just take it and like rub it on the wallpaper?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you can do that with the Play-Doh that they make now. It does the same thing.
I mean, it was a struggling company, so I don't know how effective it was.
I mean, maybe there wasn't a high demand for wallpaper cleaning.
Wallpaper cleaner.
They didn't realize how nasty smoking was back then. That
it's true.
Makes your house disgusting.
Literally yellow. It's actually insane. But yeah, because one of Beanie's favorite toys is Play-Doh, so I was like, oh, fun fact.
It is.
We got it. We got it.
So today's spooky stories. So settle in, grab your hot chocolate, and hopefully we spook you. Probably not from my story.
I just thought it was really funny when you were like, oh yeah, I have a website you can use. And you sent it to me, it popped up and it was like scary stories for kids. And I was like, oh.
Well, it says scary campfire story.
I didn't think it was going to be this hard to find like.
I found tons.
Well, 3 of mine are true stories, so.
We're supposed to be picking out spooky campfire stories that you tell to scare little children.
Oh, these are not children appropriate. These are like we're on an adult camping trip and we're drinking and we want to scare the shit out of each other. That's my vibe.
Okay, well, sometimes our brain are on the same track and sometimes, like right now, they're completely not. But that's okay.
But you know what? It is okay because you can get whatever you want to out of this episode.
Yeah.
If you just want like a gentle campfire scary story to tell your children, listen to Nikki. She has a very soothing voice. If you want to stay up late at night, crawl in a ball, crying yourself to sleep, just listen to me.
I can't wait. So my first story is kind of titled Cold as Clay.
Should we rate these spooky?
Yeah, you can rate the spooky
scales.
Odometer. Obviously, you need a kid's odometer. Like, would this scare you as a kid?
Listen, I'm telling you though, like really looking back, like Are You Afraid of the Dark gave you some serious fucking nightmares. So they could be actually terrifying.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. We're ready.
Cold as clay. There was a wealthy farmer who had a beautiful young daughter. He cared for her more than anything on earth and called her his heart's delight. Many young men came to visit her and asked for her hand in marriage, but she wasn't interested in any of them. Then one day, she met a boy who worked in the stable, and she fell in love with him. The boy came from a poor family, and the farmer did not think he was good enough match for his daughter. To keep them apart, he sent the girl to live with her uncle who had a farm 50 miles away. After the girl left, the boy fell into a deep depression. Trying to forget about his lost love, he took a job as a sailor and went away to sea. On the voyage, the young man got sick and gradually wasted away. When he died, everyone said it was of a broken heart. When the farmer learned of the poor boy's fate, he felt so guilty that he could not bring himself to tell his daughter the terrible news. Unaware of her lover's sad end, the girl continued to dream about the bright future they would someday spend together. A year passed. One dark night, there was a knock on her uncle's door. When the girl opened the door, she found her lover standing there, holding the reins of a pale white horse. "Your father asked me to come get you," he said. "Is there anything wrong?" asked the girl. "You'll see when we get there," he replied. She quickly packed some clothes, and together they rode off into the night. She sat behind him on the horse, her arms clutched tightly around his waist. "The moon is bright, and death is riding with us," he said. "Are you not afraid?" "I am not afraid because I am with you," she replied. The boy complained of a headache, so she put her hand on his forehead. "You're cold as clay," she said. "I hope you are not ill." The girl then ties her handkerchief around his head. They rode through the night, and before long, they reached the farm. The girl quickly got down from the horse and knocked on the door. "Who's there?" her father demanded. "It's your daughter," she replied. "Didn't you send for me?" "No, I certainly did not," said the father. She turned to her lover, but he was gone, and so was the horse. They went into the stables and found the horse in a cold sweat and trembling with fear. But there was no sign of the boy. Terrified, her father finally broke down and told her the truth about her boyfriend's death. They went to see Jim's parents and decided to open his grave, and when they lifted the lid of the coffin and peered in at the corpse, they saw that, tied around his head, was the girl's handkerchief. The end.
The end. But he was dead. Ew, that's creepy. That's creepy. I give it a solid 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Like, it's not gonna give me nightmares, but it was definitely creepy.
The line, "The moon is bright and death is riding with us."
Yes, that was so good. Okay. Are you ready?
No.
Again, guys, mine are not kid friendly, so just skip mine.
Just skip.
Okay. Told from a max security officer's perspective, this is a true story. I work at a max security prison, and we have several inmates who are severely mentally ill. The ones that self-harm wear a Fitbit sort of thing to monitor the heart rate. So if there's a change, they can rush into the room and stop whatever is happening. On top of this, we do visual inspections. On one round, a coworker was doing cell checks and noticed this particular inmate had blood on their face, but nothing came up on the monitors. So he called into the inmate to ask if he was okay. The inmate had their eyes closed and just kept saying, "It doesn't hurt." The inmate would not answer where the blood was from, so they opened up the cell to see what the situation was. And it turns out the inmate had plucked out both of their eyes and they were laying on the floor next to him. The inmate's heart rate monitor never alerted. The inmate never screamed. Paramedics said the inmate's vitals were normal and the inmate was fully responsive.
What the fuck?
Say it, never mind. That's it. That's it.
You just jumped right into the eyeballs thing.
I warned you. Just get it out of the way, you know?
Okay.
So that's one out of the, like I said, 3 out of the 5 of my stories are true stories. So that's the first true story.
I give it a 7, I guess.
I mean, the fact that, like, I could have probably told it spookier, but, like, also that's literally, it was, like, there were quotes because that was the security officer's, like, actual perspective. So I didn't want to, like, fuck with it too much, but yeah.
Being that I have personal experience of working in a prison, that's insane.
Right? Can you imagine? No, I don't want to. That's, yeah, actually insane. Okay,
so
next
after that terrifying eyeball story is called The Babysitter.
Ooh.
There was a young girl who was in need of a job and was able to find work as a babysitter for a couple who lived in a large, isolated old house. They were going out to see a movie that night and left the teenage babysitter in charge of their 3 young children. The babysitter put the children to bed when it got late and then went downstairs to watch some television. She was just getting comfortable when she heard the phone ringing. When she answered it, all she heard was heavy breathing, followed by a man's voice asking, "Have you checked on the children?" Freaked out, she hung up the phone, trying to convince herself that it was just someone playing a practical joke on her. She went back to watching television, but about 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. She picked up the receiver and heard hysterical laughter from the other end of the line. Then the same voice asked, "Why haven't you checked on the children?"
Shut up. That gave me full body chills.
The babysitter slammed down the phone. The poor girl was frightened out of her wits and immediately called the police. The operator at the police station told the babysitter that if the man called again, she should try to keep him talking. That would give the police time to trace the call. A few minutes later, the phone rang a 3rd time, and when the babysitter answered it, she heard the heavy breathing again. The voice on the line said, "You should really check on the children." The babysitter listened to him, laughing hysterically for a long time. She hung up the phone again, and almost immediately it rang. This time, it was the operator from the police station who yelled, "Get out of the house now! The calls are coming from the upstairs phone." The babysitter dropped the phone in shock, and suddenly she heard heavy footsteps walking down the stairs.
Hold on. Oh my God. Like literally every hair on my arm is standing up. Okay.
Without pausing for a second, she ran out of the house as fast as her legs could carry her. Just as she closed the front door behind her, a man's hand slammed against the glass. She screamed and ran out into the street just as a police car was pulling up outside. The police searched the house and found the children upstairs hiding in a closet, crying uncontrollably. In the parents' bedroom, they found a bloody X laying on the floor next to the upstairs phone. The back window was wide open, and the curtains were blowing in the breeze. There was no sign of the madman who had made the calls. He had escaped into the night when the police arrived and managed to interrupt his horrible plan to kill the children and the poor babysitter.
Oh my God. That was That was a solid 9 out of 10. Only because it literally gave me like the first like 2 phone calls gave me like little chillies, but the operator literally gave me a full body chills, and I was like, no.
So my stories aren't just for children.
No, that was good. I told you though. I was like, listen, I'm giving you shit for the children's stories, but literally like children's stories are also terrifying if you do it right, man. Woo. Okay, that was good. Why did we do the story?
I don't know. It's for the listeners. We're
for
torturing ourselves for you.
Yeah.
Murder,
I see
abandonment,
rub it up on me.
ghosts, no problem. Scary children's stories, no thank you.
No. All right, moving on. Are you ready?
No.
This is not a true story.
Okay.
Just want to preface it. Should I tell it? I should say that.
I don't know if
Okay.
my stories are true or not. The babysitter one kind of sounds like it could have been true.
The story is about a young college girl who was staying late every night and thus spending more and more time in the library rather than her own dorm room. One night, she realized that she had forgotten something in her room and decided to go back and fetch it. Upon reaching her dorm room, she opened the door and found the room completely dark and figured maybe her roommate was either asleep or out studying like her. Not wanting to disturb her roommate in case she was asleep, she left the light off and very carefully, without making any noise, grabbed what she needed and went back to the library. Upon returning to her room that night, after a marathon of studying, she found her roommate lying cold on the floor with a slit throat. The worst part was that there was a message found written with lipstick on the bathroom mirror, which read, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?"
Oh, I didn't like that.
I didn't like that either. Because like I didn't ever stay in dorms, so a lot of my friends did, so I can like kind of relate to that one. It was a little
Gross.
So that means when she went to get the book, the person who did it was there because they were like, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" Because they saw that she didn't turn on the light. Ugh. Okay, anyway.
Talk about like a brush with death and not even knowing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next one is called Red Ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually has like a bunch of different names. It can be like the red satin ribbon, the red velvet ribbon, the yellow ribbon, green ribbon. I saw all types of ribbons. Basically, it's a ribbon. And in this story, it's a red ribbon.
Okay.
Got it?
I'm ready.
Bill whistled as he strolled through the park. He was on his way to meet his girlfriend, Sally. He could smell spring in the air. He jingled the engagement ring in his pocket and thought about asking Sally to marry him. Sally sat down on a park bench, and Bill kneeled down in front of her. "Sally," Bill said, "you are the most beautiful girl I've ever met. I love you, and I want you to be my wife. Will you marry me?" Sally laughed and said, "Yes, I will marry you." As Bill gazed lovingly at his bride-to-be, his eyes lingered on the red velvet ribbon Sally always wore around her neck. "Why do you always wear that red ribbon?" Bill asked. Sally said, "Bill, I must never take off my red ribbon." Bill smiled at Sally and left the ribbon alone. Bill and Sally were married that June. Bill found a lovely little house in a nice neighborhood and they moved in. Bill bought Sally many party dresses, but Sally always wore her red ribbon with each outfit. Bill thought this was odd. Sally just smiled and said, "I must never take off my red ribbon." After a few years, Sally found out she was going to have a baby. This news delighted Bill. Sally talked with her friends who had babies, and Bill talked to his buddies who had children. And then they talked together late into the night about what they had learned from everyone. When the big day came, Sally said, "Please tell the doctor I must not take off my red ribbon." Bill was frustrated, but he promised Sally he would tell the doctor. After the baby was born, Bill gave Sally flowers. "Thank you for the flowers, Bill," Sally said. "And thank you for telling the doctor I must not take off my red ribbon." Bill did not understand why the red ribbon was so important. "Do you want to hold little Billy?" she asked. Bill, Sally, and little Billy lived happily for many years in the small, lovely house in the nice neighborhood. When little Billy was a baby, he would sometimes reach for the red ribbon around his mother's neck. Sally would gently take his little hands in hers and coo at him, saying, "Mommy must never take off her red ribbon." The red ribbon had frustrated Bill for a long time. He loved Sally with all his heart, but did not understand her need to wear the red ribbon. After many years, Bill had an idea. Our anniversary is coming up. I will buy Sally a beautiful necklace. She will take off that old red ribbon so she can wear the beautiful necklace. Their anniversary came. Bill took Sally to a fancy restaurant overlooking Central Park. They had a delicious meal, and then Bill gave Sally a velvet box with a beautiful diamond necklace in it. She opened it, smiled, and tears came to her eyes. Bill put the necklace on and started to take off the red ribbon. Sally stopped him. She said, "I must never take off my red ribbon." Bill sat back in his seat with a huff. He looked at Sally and shook his head. "I may never understand," Bill said. Sally gently placed the diamond necklace back in the velvet box and closed the lid. "It is lovely, Bill. I will treasure it always," she said. "But I must never take off my red ribbon." "Why?" Bill asked, as he had for so many years. Sally smiled sadly and shook her head. She did not answer him. Late that night, Bill was still awake. "I've loved Sally for more than 20 years, but she insists on wearing that horrible red ribbon around her neck. I think it's about time I found out why."
No, Bill, don't do it.
Bill got out of his bed and walked around to Sally's side. Bill carefully pinched the ends of the bow on the ribbon, and he began to slowly pull on the ribbon. The bow became smaller and smaller. The loops of the bow pulled through, and only a half knot was left. Bill slid his finger under the half knot and tugged. Zip! The red ribbon gave away. Pop! Sally's head came off. It rolled right to the floor, bouncing in the moonlight. One large tear fell from Sally's eye. "I warned you," she said. The end.
So was the red ribbon holding her head up?
Yep.
You'd think you want something stronger than a red ribbon.
I mean, it had worked all those years.
Frickin' Bill, mind your own damn business. I totally went to like the straight up orphan. Like
right?
I was like, oh, she's got some like scars. You know what I mean?
Oh,
no.
She's got a scar already.
She's. Oh, that was like gut wrenching. That was good though. That was good. You ready?
Ready.
Apparently, there was a children's show that used to air during wartime in Lebanon. A photographer decided to find more about this childhood memory as something seemed to be a bit off about the show. This is how he remembered it to be. From what he recalls about the show, he remembers half of it relying on a very graphic imagery and scare tactics to keep kids from misbehaving. He always thought the show was aimed towards keeping children in check of their bad habits, as there was always a moral at the end of each episode, such as bad kids stay up late and bad kids steal food from the fridge at night. But there was always one thing that the photographer remembered the most about the show: the way it ended. The closing scene of every episode was the same every single time. The camera would slowly zoom in on an old rusted iron door, and as it got closer, one could hear screams. As the camera got closer, the screaming got louder and fiercer. When the screaming couldn't get any worse, an Arabic text would pop up on the screen which read, "This is where the bad kids go," and the episode would end. The photographer was confused with all of this, so he set out on a quest to find that door. That creepy door.
No.
Somehow he managed to just no.
No.
No. Why? Somehow he managed to track down the studio where the show was filmed. The place looked like it had been abandoned for ages, and there among the ruins was the rusted door. The same door that would show up at the end of every episode. And then he discovered what was beyond that door. A small room covered with traces of blood, feces, and bones. And what scared him to death was a small microphone that hung from the middle of that room.
Oh my god. Okay. So this one is called High Beam.
Ooh, okay.
As a woman drove down a deserted highway, she noticed a lone pair of headlights quickly approaching her car from behind. When the car came closer, she noticed that it was going to overtake her. The car drew up beside her, but then the driver suddenly swerved back behind her car. She started getting nervous and kept an eye on the strange car in her rearview mirror. He pulled up dangerously close to her rear bumper and began flashing his high beams at her. The headlights dimmed for a moment, but then the high beams flashed again, and the car behind her surged forward. The car followed her very closely on tight curves, over hills. He would flash his high beams on and off irregularly. The frightened woman struggled to keep her eyes on the road and fought the urge to keep looking at the car behind her. Finally, she approached her exit, but the car continued to follow, flashing his high beam again and again. The terrified woman took out her mobile phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, the woman screamed into the phone, "A car is following me. He keeps tailgating me and blinking his lights at me." The woman gave her address, and in a few minutes she saw the red and blue lights of a police car in the distance. She breathed a sigh of relief as she pulled into her driveway. But suddenly, the strange car pulled into her driveway behind her and began blinking its lights on and off like a maniac. The police car screeched to a halt on the woman's front lawn, and two police officers jumped out with their guns drawn. They pulled the man out of the strange car and forced him to lie face down on the lawn. Then they handcuffed him as he screamed, "There's someone in her car! There's someone in her car!" The two policemen suddenly pointed their guns at the woman's direction and fired. The woman screamed, but when she turned around, she saw the bloody corpse of a murderer fall out of her back seat. There was a large butcher knife still clasped in his cold, dead hand. The police searched her back seat and found duct tape, a blindfold, a pair of handcuffs lying there. The woman realized that the man in the strange car had been trying to save her. When the police released him, he explained that as he pulled up behind her car and his headlights lit up her back seat, he had seen a man with a butcher knife rising up behind her. Just as the madman was about to stab her, he flashed his high beam, and the figure crouched back down. "I flashed my high beam every time I saw him raise the knife," he said.
Oh, that's a really good one. Oh. I was thinking, okay, maybe he's in the trunk. You know what I mean? Maybe they saw somebody in his trunk. Oh, chill inducing. Yeah, these ghost stories for kids are terrifying. Okay, just moving right along. Jesus. Okay. This is true story. In 1974, 24-year-old Waco University student Izzy Sagawa allegedly followed a German woman to her home in Tokyo, Japan, broke into her apartment while she was sleeping, and attempted to cut a piece of her buttocks off to consume. When she awoke, she reportedly fought him, and he was later captured by the police. According to a 2012 Vice documentary that covered the bizarre story, he was mistakenly charged with attempted rape, and his wealthy father paid the victim a settlement outside of court to have the charges dropped. 7 years later, Sagawa, now 32, invited his classmate Renee Harvelt, a Dutch woman, to dinner at his apartment, under the pretext of translating poetry for a school assignment. Sagawa planned to kill and eat her, having selected her for a health and beauty, characteristics he felt like he lacked. Sagawa considered himself weak, ugly, and small, and claims he wanted to absorb her energy. She was 25 years old. After she arrived, she began reading poetry at a desk with her back to Sagawa, when he shot her in the neck with a rifle. He then stated that he fainted after the shock of shooting her. but awoke with the realization that he now had to carry out his plan. He could not bite into her skin because his teeth were not sharp enough, so he left the apartment and purchased a butcher knife.
You did not tell me to buckle up before this one.
Buckle up.
Where was the warning? Oh my
Sorry.
god. Okay. Why was he was just gonna go in raw? Just like
Yeah. Like literally try to bite into her skin.
Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god. Okay.
So I was gonna do a story on this guy, but it's not a lot of information. It's like a short story situation. But like apparently he had cannibalistic urges as young as 11 when he saw a lady's thigh and thought, I bet that would taste good.
Then go to therapy. Oh my god. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Sagawa consumed various parts of the body, eating most of her breasts and face either raw or cooked, while saving other parts in his refrigerator. He also took photographs of the body at each eating stage. He then attempted to dump the remains of the corpse in a lake at the Bois de Boulogne, carrying her dismembered body parts in 2 suitcases. He was pushing those 2 suitcases up a hill, and then they literally started rolling away from him. They started rolling down the hill, one busted open, and he was caught in the act and arrested by French police 4 days later. He was deported back to Japan and committed to a mental institution. For reasons unknown, his psychologists in Japan declared that he was sane. Furthermore, a legal technicality involving the French government refusing to turn over documents from his case meant that his murder charges were dropped completely. He checked himself out of the mental hospital and has reportedly been walking the streets as a free man ever since.
No.
He has even become a controversial celebrity, writing over 20 books. According to Japan Today, he most recently fantasized about an unnamed TV actress saying, "I catch a glimpse of her thigh and think that sure looks tasty, but I don't feel like I actually want to eat it now. As I've accomplished the act of cannibalism once, there's no meaning to maintaining the desire for it anymore. In my book, I wrote that human flesh was tasty, but that was not necessarily true. I'd much rather eat Kobe beef. But because I had desired to consume human flesh for such a long time, I managed to convince myself that it would be delicious." He is currently 73 years old and continues to live in Japan. To this day, no one knows why France did not allow Japan to give him a trial.
I don't understand. He didn't kill anyone else afterward. He had to, right? Come on.
It was like in one of his 20 books, he kind of like was just like, oh, it was just like a fascination that I've had, and I had fixated on it for so long, and once I did it, it was over, you know? I don't know.
All right, I'm gonna try and put on my spookiest voice for my last one.
I'm so ready.
If you don't know me by now, know that I must always throw a ship or water or something story into it's my theme. I'm obsessed.
Or
Australia or ships. That's me. In a nutshell.
That's our brand.
Anywho, so this one is called Cargo Ship, or under another title, Somebody Fell from the Aloft.
Okay.
Years ago, I signed up as an ordinary seaman on a cargo ship traveling to England. On this particular voyage, the crew were a tolerable bunch, all except for one hard-looking character named McLaurin. He was a fair seaman, but there was something about the cut of the fellow's jib that I just didn't trust. He didn't get along with the others, and they didn't get along with him. Even at mealtimes, he wouldn't associate with the rest of us. He would just wolf down his food like a dog, then got up and left without a word. He was very secretive, kept mostly to himself, and always acted in an aggressive manner. There were a couple of times when I caught him giving me the dirty looks, as if he was just itching for a chance to knife me in the back. One dreary afternoon, while we were trying to work, a thick fog set in. It was a black, dripping fog, and you could scarcely see. be the length of the vessel. It
Ugh.
soaked up all the light to the point where you'd think we didn't have any lights on at all. The sea was dead calm, and there wasn't so much as a breath of wind in there. The ship was rolling slowly along as the captain steered its course. The deck of the cargo ship was silent, and no man said a word. Then, all at once, there was a mighty whack. Something hit the deck, and the force of it almost jarred the entire ship.
Jesus.
It landed with a thump right in front of McLaurin. He let a screech out of him that would turn the blood cold in your veins. The second mate started yelling that somebody had fallen from aloft, and the captain fetched a lantern from his cabin so we could see who it was. McLaurin had fallen over the wheel in a dead faint, his arms hanging limp and swinging back and forth with the motion of the ship. By the light of the lantern, we could see someone or something lying out there on the deck, just in front of the wheel. Whatever it was dressed in oilskin, and there was a big pool of blood dribbling out from underneath it. Everyone was afraid to approach it. We all knew nobody was supposed to be up in the crow's nest, so none of us could explain how a body ended up falling and landing on the deck. Eventually, some of the crew mustered the courage to turn over the corpse and take a good look at its face. Peering over their shoulders, I saw it was a big, ugly-looking man, but I didn't recognize him at all. In fact, there wasn't a soul on board who knew who he was or what he had been doing up there. When McLaurin recovered from his faint, we tried to question him about it, but all he could do was jabber away incoherently and keep rolling those big, wild-looking eyes of his. Seamen are a superstitious bunch at best of times, and everyone on board was getting more and more frightened. They all wanted to heave the body overboard as quickly as they could. There was something weird about it. Something definitely was not quite right. The captain thought the man might be a stowaway, but the ship was so full of lumber there was no place for a man to hide. Whoever the dead man was, he hadn't been on the ship when we pulled out of port. The second mate gave orders to throw the corpse over the side, but the crew were convinced there was something supernatural afoot. All of them were afraid to touch it. The second mate was shouting at this one and that one, but he couldn't coax anyone into moving a muscle. All of a sudden, McLaurin started yelling like a lunatic and ran out onto the deck. "I've handled him once, I can handle him again," he cried, and he picked up the corpse and dragged it over to the railing. Just as he was about to heave it over the side, the thing reached out with its two big, long arms and wrapped them around McLaurin. Before anyone knew what was happening, the pair of them went over the rail together. Just as they did so, up came the most horrible laugh any of us had ever heard. The crew gathered round, staring bug-eyed at the terrifying scene. The second mate was yelling at us to launch a boat and rescue McLaurin, but nobody would dare to get into a boat, not after what they had just witnessed. He threw a couple of life preservers over the side, but we all knew nothing on God's green earth could save him now. Later on, the captain told us on the last trip he had made, there was a really big fellow who had always been picking on McLaurin and pushing him around. There was bad blood between them, and McLaurin was always making threats about how he would someday get his revenge. One wet and dirty night, the two of them were up in the crow's nest alone. In the middle of the night, the big fellow somehow fell, struck the deck like a ton of bricks. When they found him, he was stone cold dead, said the captain. Deader than 40 herring. I have no idea what that means. When they questioned McLaurin about it, he said it had all been a terrible accident. The rope ladder they were using suddenly snapped and the big fellow plunged to his death. McLaurin claimed he might have fallen himself, but for the grace of God. However, nobody believed his story. Everyone who saw the rope ladder knew it didn't give away on its own. The rope had been cut through with a knife, but they couldn't prove anything, so they had to let the matters drop. In the end, I guess the big fellow took care of things his own way, said the captain.
I don't like that one. Oh, that was good though. It was creepy. I'm actually really excited too because I haven't really heard like any of these before. So this is fun. This is really fun. Oh man, that is creepy. I guess that explains why he passed out, because he was like, "You're supposed to be dead already. Why are you still here? Why am I reliving this?" Last story. So this is a true story.
Okay. Buckle up.
Okay.
I'm buckling up preemptively.
Buckle up. This one's more just like super creepy.
Okay.
Nobody's gonna get eaten, or no eyeballs are gonna be taken out.
Okay.
So this is just like creepy.
You didn't save those for last. Got it.
Right. I mean, I ripped the Band-Aid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's healing.
Okay. Sure. Go on.
So it all began in 2014 when Derek and Maria Brodus, who had 3 young children, decided to buy their dream house for $1.35 million in her hometown.
Wow. Okay. Go off.
The house has 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and more than 3,800 square feet on almost half an acre of land. It's in a great school district, less than 28 miles from Manhattan. The perfect family home for both commuting and raising children. The Dutch Colonial at 657 Boulevard in upscale Westfield, New Jersey was built in 1905. They moved their furniture and carried out extensive renovations, but before they could take up residency themselves, their idyllic family adventure took a strange and eerie turn. Just days after closing, Mr. Brodus says he discovered a white envelope addressed to the new owner in the family mailbox. "How did you end up here?" the letter read. "Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within?" It added that the home had, quote, "been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I've been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in 1920s, and my father watched the house in 1960s, and now it's my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. Signed, The Watcher."
What the fuck?
In a total of 3 letters, the Broduses say the writer mentioned specifics that presumably could have only been witnessed and heard in close proximity to the home. Quote, "I see already that you flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy." The writer added, quote, "You have children. I've seen them. So far, I think that there are 3 that I've counted. Do you need to fill the house with young blood as I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or is it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me." The writer did eventually refer to the children, quote, "by birth order and by their nicknames. Even one child in particular," reported New York Magazine's The Cut. Mr. Brodus told the publication that he was a depressed wreck as he and his wife attempted to figure out what to do. She said their main goal was to avoid putting the children in harm's way. It was certainly a difficult decision given the malevolent tone of the correspondence. This is another quote. "It has been years and years since young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I was them. It's far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I will know as soon as you move in. It'll help me to know who's in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and I have been in control of 657 Boulevard for a better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on, and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, and my obsession. And now, you are too, Brodus family. Welcome to the project of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me." That was all in quotations.
What the fuck? They can't just
The
want the house because it's a nice house.
It's the young blood for me. The Brodus family asked the previous owners where they had been plagued by such letters, and the Woods said they actually received only one letter in 23 years of occupying the home, and that it had come in the mail just before they moved out. It took the Brodus family years to sell the home at a massive loss, and to this day there are still no clues as to who the watcher might be and what that threatening person truly wanted. The occupants who preceded the Woods family also said there hadn't been any issues during their 28 years at the address. Margaret Bakes Davis, who grew up in the house, tells The Independent the whole brouhaha was, quote, a little odd, and I think especially because it was such a wonderful time for me and our family, there were no issues, unquote. Many in Westfield try to downplay the mystery or avoid discussing it altogether. Others have altered their jogging routes to avoid passing a house that still gives them a weird feeling. The case sparked countless theories, both locally and internationally. Everyone from neighbors to sex offenders to the Brodus family themselves came under suspicion.
Everyone's a suspect.
Everyone
Got it.
was suspicious. One theory, the parents of the three contacted police, and suspicion initially centered on a neighbor, Michael Langford, whose eccentric family had a unique vantage point that would explain one detail in the letters. The Langfords vehemently denied involvement and were ultimately cleared. Michael died in 2020 and his family remained livid to this day. So it doesn't go into it here, but basically they had like lawn chairs. You know how like you would either have like lawn chairs like set up to face your house or like set up away from the house? Like they had them in their yard, like cockeyed, literally facing into their neighbor's house.
That's weird.
It was weird. They were definitely weird. The Brodus family also hired a forensic linguist who, quote, did not find any noteworthy overlap when he scored the local online forums for similarities to the Watcher's writing, although he did think the author might watch Game of Thrones.
What?
Because Jon Snow is one of the Watchers on the wall.
Okay, sure.
The Brodus is still unwilling to move into the house, did end up renting it out. It said another letter arrived at the address in 2017, listing various tragedies that could befall, such as a car accident, fire, or sudden death of a pet or loved one if they did not move into the house. Some theorize a jealous buyer who'd lost out while bidding on the stately house could be sending the letters, or a realtor, or just a prankster, or perhaps most creepily, but least plausible, someone who had been living behind the walls or in the space within the home for years.
Ew.
Attention centered on the Broduses as well. Many suspected the letters could have been constituted some type of inside job. Locals theorized buyer's remorse could have prompted a wild plan to recoup some of their expenses.
But it backfired. They sold the house at a loss. So like it didn't make sense.
Loss. Yeah, no,
for them
not
to
at
do
all.
it.
So fun fact about this is actually a Netflix show now. They created The Watcher. It just came out on October 13th with a cast including Mia Farrow, Naomi Watts, Bobby Cannavale, and Jennifer Coolidge. And it is now on Netflix, so you can watch it. But Netflix bought the rights to it. They created a show based on it.
Wow. Is there anything Netflix do?
It's true. I mean, anyway, that's my story. The letters can be found online. Like, they're creepy letters. They're creepy letters. So that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to follow the podcast. Leave a comment on our videos. If you're watching on YouTube, hi. Hope you enjoyed our costumes. A little dress up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's awesome when we get a new subscriber. We celebrate. We message each other. We're like, oh my God, we got another subscriber. Mm-hmm. That could be you. You could bring us joy. So do it.
You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with our username at TT8TA Podcast. And in all the bios of all those social medias is our link tree where you can find everything and anything, including our email. So email us stuff.
Do it. If you want us to tell a scary story, if we get enough like spooky scary stories or like listener stories, then we can do a listeners episode. And oh my god, that would be so much fun. Thanks for listening, guys. Next week, we're going to be switching it up a little bit again because I think we had a lot of fun going into like serial killers, like when we did our last episode, right?
Well, next week
And-
is supposed to be true crime anyways, and why not just
Right.
like specify it for 1 week?
So we're going to be doing true crime, but we're going to pick a serial killer. We're going to pick a bigger serial killer and kind of go into all their fun things. That's not the right. All their stories. So true crime next week. Be there, be square. It's gonna be fun. And with that, we're gonna leave you with this inspirational quote.
On Halloween, witches come true. Wild ghosts escape from jail. Each monster dances.
Okay.
Nick Gordon.
Yeah, it's gonna be Halloween. When this comes out, it'll be Halloween in two days.
Yeah, 2 days. Monday. Happy Halloween, guys. And
Happy
we'll
Halloween.
see you in November with serial killers.
Woo! All right. Bye.
Bye.